Hi, dear children. Welcome to the new chapter Cell Cycle and Cell Division. Dear children, even a large organism, no matter what its size is, it has started its life from a single cell called as zygote. And from the zygote, a large number of division of the cell takes place to form a multicellular organism with millions of cells. So, cell growth and cell division or growth or reproduction are basic characteristics of all living organisms, and it is also the basic characteristics of all cells in any body of an organism. According to Virtue, he proposed that each cell arises from pre-existing cell. That means a parental cell, it divides to give rise to two daughter cells, and these daughter cells again continues cell growth and cell reproduction and forms a large number of cells. So such cycles of cell growth and division results in millions of cells resulting in a multicellular organism. Let's learn about a cell cycle and cell division in this chapter. So growth and reproduction of all living organisms depends on division and enlargement of a cell. So a cell, after it divides, it grows and then it undergoes the next cycle of division. So the mechanism of division and multiplication of the cells constitutes the cell reproduction. So the division of the cells and how it multiplies represents the cell reproduction. So it is the life period of a cell during which, so cell cycle is a period of a cell during which it undergoes replication or synthesis of its DNA content. DNA content, we know it is a genetic material which is acting or which is having the cellular information. So this DNA, it has to get replicated. So you can see this is the parental DNA from which it replicates to form two daughter DNA. So this is a parental cell with the parental DNA, and we can see the DNA getting replicated so that it is equally distributed into the two daughter cells. So it is the period in a cell during which first it synthesizes or doubles the amount of DNA. That means it is called as DNA replication. The parental DNA is constructing a replica of itself. Then the cell grows and after that it divides. So three phases, I repeat: replication of the DNA, the growth of the cell, and the division of the cell into two daughter cells. So cell growth, okay, cell growth means the increase in the cytoplasm content. It is a process which is taking place throughout. Whereas the replication of DNA takes place at a specific stage. So duration of the cell cycle, it varies in different organism. For example, the case of yeast, it is taking only 90 minutes. Whereas in the case of a human cell, a eukaryotic cell cycle or human cell, it is taking place. The cell cycle constitutes 24 hours. So the duration varies according to the organism. So cell cycle can be broadly divided into two phases. That is M phase and interphase. So what are these M phase and interphase? In this cell cycle, we can see this orange colored part constitutes the interphase. So from this diagram itself, we can understand that interphase constitutes or it consumes a larger amount of time in the cell cycle. And M phase, this is the M phase. So two phases, interphase and M phase. So what is happening during interphase? It is otherwise called as the resting phase, the stage in which the cell is said to be at rest. But actually it is not at rest. Large amount of metabolic processes is taking place during this resting phase. So it is the phase, that is the interphase, is the period between two consecutive M phase. So that I shall explain. So this cell which has undergone the M phase, it enters into the interphase, and after that cell enters into the M phase. So let me repeat: the M phase, the cell which has undergone M phase, that is a mitotic phase in which we can see it is getting divided. That cell enters into interphase, and after that that cell which has undergone interphase enters into M phase. So it is the period between two consecutive M phases. So it is just during this period that the first two processes, that is replication of DNA and the growth of the cell, takes place, and it constitutes about 95% of the duration of cell cycle. Just now I told you it consumes larger amount of time. And the interphase can be divided into three. Again, it can be divided into three. We can see it is G1, S, and G2. What does this G1 stand for? It is standing for gap phase 1. Or we can say it is a growth phase. Then S phase stands for synthetic phase, and G2 stands for the gap 2 phase. So first let us learn about the gap 1 phase, G1 phase, which is immediately followed after the M phase. So it is a first growth phase. As I told you, G can also be represented by growth. So it represents the first growth phase, and it is intermediate between the mitotic phase and the synthetic phase, or the S phase. So we can see this is the first gap phase, which is between the mitotic phase or M phase and between the synthetic phase. So what are the main events which is taking place during the first G1 phase? The cell grows. As the name indicates, growth phase or gap phase, the cell grows. The cell becomes metabolically active, and it prepares the machinery for DNA replication. Soon after the gap phase, the synthetic phase or the DNA replication is followed. So the machinery which is needed for the DNA replication is prepared during the first gap phase. And synthesis of RNA and proteins which is needed for this replication of DNA is also synthesized. So what are the phases? The growth of the cell takes place. Then the cells becomes metabolically active, and it synthesizes the machinery for DNA replication, and all the RNA and proteins needed for further cell cycle is synthesized during the first gap phase. So first gap phase or growth phase is followed after the mitotic phase, and soon after the gap phase 1, what is coming? It is followed by the S phase, or it is called as a synthetic phase. So it is this phase during which the DNA replicates. We can see here, we can two strands, or we can see two chromosomes over here. And after DNA replication, we can see the amount of DNA in this has doubled. We can see two chromatids. Firstly, let us understand the structure of the chromosome, which we had studied in Cell, the Unit of Life. This constriction in the middle is called as a centromere. And from the centromere, arms arise, and these are called as chromatids. So after DNA replication, the amount of DNA gets multiplied. Okay, so the DNA doubles per cell, but the chromosome number remains a constant. The chromosome number is not getting doubled. Instead, only the DNA which is present inside the chromosomes gets doubled. In animal cells, during the synthetic phase, the replication which is taking place in the nucleus, and concomitantly in the cytoplasm, the centrioles duplicate. We have learned what is centrioles. They are part, that is, the centrosomes has two centrioles which are placed perpendicular to each other, and we have learned the function of centriole. It is helping the formation of cilia and flagella, and also it is helping in the formation of the spindle apparatus, which is very important for cell division. Soon after the synthetic phase, the G2 or the gap 2 phase is followed. So this is the second growth phase. Again, the cell continues to grow. As I told you, the cell growth is taking place throughout the cell cycle. So it continues to grow, and synthesis of the RNA and proteins also continues, which is needed for M phase. So all the RNA, that is ribonucleic acid, and proteins which is needed for cell division is synthesized during the G2 phase, and the cell is getting prepared for the M phase or the mitotic phase, where the cell is going to divide. Okay, so what were the three processes? It was the synthesis of the DNA replication, the growth of the cell, and cell division, wasn't it? So these three events can be represented in the cell cycle, in which the cell growth is taking place during the G1 and G2, and replication of DNA is taking place during the synthetic phase, and cell division is going to take place during the mitotic phase. So next is the M phase. It represents the actual cell division. So it is called as a mitotic phase, or the phase in which the cell is going to get divided. The duration of M phase constitutes only 1 hour. Okay, so the M phase has, again, it can be subdivided into two stages. the karyokinesis and cytokinesis. Karyon means nucleus. So kinesis means the division of the nucleus is called as karyokinesis. And not only the nucleus has to divide, the cytoplasm has also to get divided so that it can be distributed into the two daughter cells. Cytokinesis takes place immediately after karyokinesis. So karyokinesis is division of nucleus and cytokinesis is division of cytoplasm. But some cells, they do not show division. Okay, they do not show division at all. And such cells are examples are heart cells. Whereas some cells, they divide only occasionally to repair the damaged or dead cells. Okay, so these are the exceptions in which some cells do not divide further after formation, and some cells divide only at time in which of repair or damage. In some cases, the cells do not divide further. Okay, so soon after its division, it enters into the G1 phase or the first growth phase, and after that it does not divide further and exit from the G1 phase and enters into a quiescent stage, or this is called as the G0 phase. So soon after division, and after that it is followed by the G1 phase, it exits out of the cell cycle and enters into an inactive phase which is called as the G0, or it is called as a quiescent phase. So such cells, it remains metabolically active but they do not proliferate. They do not undergo cell division, but they are metabolically active cells. So dear children, in this module we learned about the cell cycle, which involves the interphase and the M phase. Thank you.